Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee also thinks we need to go big. But Senator, $1.5 trillion in cuts spread out over 10 years and no talk of lowering the corporate tax rate. Is that really going big?
No, it's not going big at all. In fact, I'm not sure it's going anywhere. The problem is that one Congress can't bind another Congress. So no matter how big the spending cuts are that we're talking about, if they're stretched out over a period of 10 years and if they're not accompanied by a constitutional amendment, we have no guarantee that they'll even be followed.
Well, do you get a sense that both sides now are kind of taking a step back to try and get a deal and making the deal small enough that'll be palatable for both sides? Because the administration and the Democrats are not going to make a big deal unless you have big tax increases, and the Republicans want big spending cuts, and neither side is willing to give, so they'll both take small cuts and small increases?
Well, some have suggested that. I actually believe that we're not nearing a deal in that area at all. Because at this point, the only plan on the table, the only plan that has any significant degree of public support, is that found in the Cut, Cap, and Balance Act that we filed last week. A week ago today, we now have the support of about 35 Senate Republicans. A companion bill is being introduced today or tomorrow in the House of Representatives, and we expect a lot of support there as well.
Senator, how does that plan work? Because I think we've heard that term now over the last week quite often, and I'm not sure if everybody out there really understands how it would work.
Well, it involves some immediate spending cuts. It takes the domestic discretionary spending for fiscal year 2012 back to 2006 spending levels. And then it brings about a series of cuts that on the Senate side at least would result in about $6 trillion worth of cuts over the next 10 years. But the most important feature of it is that it requires passage of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution as a condition to raising the debt limit at all. And that's its distinguishing feature. That's the one that we have to have in order to make this deal work.
Senator,
this plan is growing. It's the only plan out there right now.
Well, there's another plan. It's the McConnell plan, and it seems to be gaining some acceptance on both sides of the aisle. I mean, even earlier today, Dick Durbin, if we don't get an agreement today, we're going to have no choice but to pass a McConnell-type plan after that. Bob Corker, we got to stop this childhood behavior. He talks about, though he intimated to our own James Rosen earlier in the day, that plan is gaining some support. Do you get that sense?
Well, that plan has been described by Senator McConnell himself as a backup plan, as a plan B. There are a number of us, myself included, who are not willing to consider that plan and will not support it. I've pledged from the beginning, and in fact since before I even took office, that I will not support any plan that isn't accompanied by a constitutional amendment.
Talk to me about what happens on August 2nd. We certainly have heard the scare tactics by the administration about Social Security checks. Talk to me what happens on that day if we don't have an agreement to raise the debt ceiling. You have a plan that could, or certainly would enable Social Security checks to be mailed out and some other expenditures by the government to actually be taken care of, don't you?
Oh, that's right. That's right. My plan would address the debt limit, and it would allow government to continue to operate, for Social Security checks to continue to be sent out. That's why I find so insulting the president's unwillingness to go along with this plan. He has yet to describe what it is about the idea of a constitutional amendment that he finds so repugnant. But the president dismissed it out of hand, and the very next day said, let's go ahead and just cut all of the Social Security checks going out to current retirees, without any explanation as to why they would be the first on the chopping block. I mean, look, when we're bringing in about $200 billion a month, and our interest payments are less than 10% of that, and Social Security payments are about $50 billion, why on earth would you cut Social Security checks first? That doesn't make any sense to me, and I think it's insulting to America's retirees.
And we were just putting on the screen some of those 20 items that you think could be cut and trimmed before you had to dig in to the Social Security fund and would have to stop mailing out those checks. One final thing for you, Senator. Do you get a sense at all that there is a split within the GOP because of these negotiations? I know Cantor's been getting hammered. I talk a lot about some of these other senators that are favoring the McConnell bill. Some, like yourself, are not favoring it. Do you feel like there's a little bit of a split?
Well, look, what I see developing is a growing consensus behind the cut, cap, balance approach. And I'm pleased to announce that Senator McConnell himself has signed on as a co-sponsor to the Cut, Cap, Balance Act. So I think that's where the consensus is growing. I'm choosing to focus on where there's agreement rather than where there might be disagreement.
Senator Lee, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.